So none of the pick guard screws want to come out. They're just turning, so I need to just lever them up a little bit to get them out. So naturally the last screw didn't want to come out, so I've had to drill the top off of that screw to enable me to take the control panel off. And what I'm going to do is, normally I'd pull this wire through, but I'm just going to snip that off and solder it back on later, because I want to leave this bridge in place so I can check that alignment I spoke about. Right, so as suspected, the neck is out of alignment. If I hold that on there and measure it with my calipers, that's actually 6.8 millimeters. If I come over the other side and measure it, it's 1.6 millimeters. So we've got this discrepancy of 5 mil. So the neck needs to go like that. And indeed, when you look at the neck socket, there's a bigger gap there than there is there, and there's a bigger gap there than there is there. So that really suggests that the neck should be tipping in that direction. But that's something I'll probably look at once I've done the refret. So this is interesting. Taking these screws out. One, the screws actually do come out easily, which I wasn't expecting at all. And two, look at that. They must be new screws. So clearly this neck has been off before at some point, hence the misalignment. So I've stripped the neck down, ready to start the refret. Backed off the truss rod, so I'm glad that the truss rod works. When I took the bushes out of the for the tuners, they've all got masking tape around them, so that's a bit more evidence that somebody else has had a go at this before me. One thing that is interesting though is that these bushes are actually chrome plated metal. The KEB 100 that I did a while back, they were actually chrome plated plastic, so maybe that's further evidence of the quality that I was talking about. Yeah, so a wee bit of trepidation with this refret, or rather taking the frets out, because you never know what you're going to find. One thing that I've discovered whilst working on these sort of Japanese guitars, these factory-made Japanese guitars, is that they're never quite what you think they are. So what should be a relatively straightforward job, fingers crossed, will be, but it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't. Right, so I'm gradually getting to grips with getting these frets out. It's a bit tricky because you can't really get under the bead of the fret, so it's a question of really gripping it tightly, and then once I've created a little gap, I can then just slide that fretboard protector under so I don't damage the fretboard, and work my way along. And they're coming out okay. It's just the initial getting hold of the thing. So a combination of the profile of the bead and the fact that they've been flattened so much, there's not an awful lot to get hold of. But yeah, there you go. Right. So that's all the frets out. Look at this one here, look. The bead of that is 0.7 of a millimetre. That's how much it's been stoned. And you can see the difficulty that I had trying to grip it to actually pull the thing out. But there you go. That's done now. So let's clean the fretboard up and start looking at the next stage. So the next step then is to just gently sand the fretboard and level it off. And you can see immediately the change of colour, the high points. So when it looks like this all over, I'm done. So one unforeseen problem is that where the frets have been put in with such force, it's actually compressed the edge of the fret slot. And I want to try to bring that wood back up. Otherwise, when I put my frets in, they're going to be too low in certain areas. And of course, it also explains why I had trouble getting the frets out, because the actual bead of the fret was below the surface of the rosewood. So we've just got to gently try to steam these compressions out. I've sanded it as much as I dare, because if I sand it much more, then the slots won't be deep enough for the fret wire, and I can't afford that because the edges of the fretboard are bound. So, as I said earlier, you never quite know what these guitars are going to surprise you with. But yeah, that I think is actually working. Right, so I'm really pleased now with the way that fretboard has cleaned up. Those impressions from where the previous frets were clearly forced in have mostly all of them have gone. It's been sanded, given a coat of lemon oil, and I've got no doubt that fretboard is in better condition than it probably was in maybe 1970 when the instrument was new. So each fret has to have the ends snipped off so that it overhangs the binding, and I just tap the end with a blade in order to put a few extra barbs on there, so it will grip in these worn slots better. Right, 4 down, a few more to do. So I'm just going over the whole neck now with some 1200 Wettle Dry and a 4000 abrasive pad, just ready to give it a good old clean. So there we have it, the refretted and refreshed base neck ready to be reassembled. I'm going to have to make a new nut. The old one is completely roached. But as you see, there's actually quite a lot of work involved there. I guess as a kind of cautionary note, I bought this base at what I thought was a reasonable price because I knew that I had to refret it. And the guy who sold it to me also knew that it needed refretted, so it was a kind of an amicable deal on both sides. But I guess if you bought a guitar like this, completely unseen on the internet, you didn't know you had to have this sort of work done, you could be spending a lot of money and going well beyond the value of the instrument. I mean, for example, this kind of level of refret, making the nut, etc., you're probably looking at about £250 worth of work, and unless you've got the wherewithal to be able to do this yourself, you may want to steer clear of buying things blindly on the internet. But there you go, you know, you pays your money, you takes your choice. So as always, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and yeah, I'll show you where we're up to in the next episode. So until then, you take care. Cheers.